I never thought the future would turn out like this. Life is truly fascinating. When I was 10, my parents died in an accident. My father was a quiet fisherman, and my mother was the gentle soul who supported him. One night, they both unusually set out on their boat and never returned after it capsized. Being still young, I was adopted by my grandmother. It was their date night. Every year, on their anniversary, Ken would take Yuna on a sea date, something she always looked forward to. But who could have predicted this outcome? She spoke with a hint of sadness, and then in a soft yet firm voice, she comforted me. "It's okay. I'm here for you." My grandmother lives alone. Her house is, to put it nicely, not in the best condition. It's a rundown apartment. "I'm sorry for having such a house. We're poor." She often apologized for it. But I loved living with her so much that I would always reassure her, "I don't mind, please don't apologize." And I spent my days smiling. Being poor didn't bother me. I was determined to work hard. As long as I had my grandmother, who always encouraged and cared for me, I felt that I could face anything. I gained confidence to keep going. I wanted to make my grandmother happy, so I studied hard. My efforts paid off, and by my first year of middle school, I was the top of my class. This gained attention at school, but not everyone was pleased, especially a classmate named Charlie. "Heard you're living with your poor grandma, huh? That's why your uniform looks so tattered." His cronies giggle at Charlie's words. My uniform was a hand-me-down from a senior in the neighborhood. It might not have been the best, but that's what my grandma asked the neighbors to get for me. Being mocked for something so precious to me was unbearable. Yet, I couldn't find the words to defend myself. Our house walls were thin. I didn't want Grandma to hear my crying, so when alone, I cried quietly. To avoid feeling more depressed, I began helping out more around the house. I would assist her with her monthly elderly meetings or accompany her to the hospital. She often thanked me for my help, but being in my awkward teenage years, I could only manage a shy smile in response. However, her words always lifted my spirits. I had always worried if I was a burden after being adopted, so feeling useful made me incredibly happy. I went on to a public high school with affordable tuition. I took on part-time jobs at night to make ends meet. Though I always helped her, being able to directly contribute to our finances alleviated some of my worries. I continued studying, and thanks to my hard work, I got into my first choice national university. I received a scholarship that covered my tuition, allowing me to focus on my studies without accumulating debt. I always brag about you to my friends. My grandson is so adorable and hardworking. Grandma happily said so many times. Knowing that she spoke so highly of me, even in my absence, made me incredibly happy and motivated me to work even harder in university. I particularly enjoyed studying English and wondered if there was something I could do with it. It was during this time, a doctor from the hospital where I always accompanied my grandmother suggested I volunteer as a simple interpreter. I eagerly agreed. It was quite a hard day, but I think it was very fulfilling. Soon it was time for job hunting. I interviewed at several companies but kept facing rejections. Then, at a job fair, a familiar voice stopped me. "Is that you, Tom? Aren't you Tom?" It was unmistakable. The same annoying guy from school, Charlie, stood before me. "Why is Charlie here?" "I'm here to talk to you because I'm job hunting too. I'm interested in this industry. You're here to listen to you, right? Well, I'm sure the company I'm working for is better than yours. Wearing such a shabby, stained suit like yours, I doubt anyone would hire you. Charlie chuckled mockingly, the same way he did back in school. You never know. Unlike back then, I could talk back. But, he said, you've come a long way to talk back to me, haven't you? Then he laughs again, sarcastically. Nothing seemed to have changed since the old days. Unfortunately, I kept running into Charlie at the booths, and each time he teased me, and I felt bad. It was frustrating to feel this way, even as an adult. On my way home with these bitter feelings, Grandma greeted me with concern. Tom, what's wrong? You don't look well? No, nothing. I just got a bit tired after listening to various company presentations. I tried to put on a smile to mask my feelings. Grandma then brought a delicious-looking stew from the kitchen. This is made from butterbur. I got it from the seniors meeting before, and it was so delicious. I wanted to share it with you, so I learned how to make it. You've loved stewed dishes and food since you were little. Eating your favorite food might cheer you up. I've noticed you've been eating a lot of fast food lately, but you should also eat homemade meals once in a while. Saying that, she also served some bread and soup. While my friends my age don't seem to like stew, I loved cuisine since I was little, probably because I grew up with Grandma. Thank you. Today's meal looked really delicious. I savored the taste of homemade food, thinking it might be a while before I get to eat such dishes again after moving out. After I get a job, I plan to live alone. Somehow, this daily life seems irreplaceable. What will my grandma do when I'm gone? Would she be comfortable alone? Or maybe she'll feel lonely. Does she have trouble going out because of her bad legs? I wonder if it will be difficult to go to senior citizens' parties that she looks forward to. Various thoughts were running through my mind, and I found myself in tears. What's wrong? Are you that tired? Feeling guilty for making her worry, I replied hastily. I'm fine. I got to eat your cooking after a long time and it cheered me up. Homemade food is always the best. Although I've been busy and relying on fast food, I'll make time to eat together like this. Can you make stew again for me? Grandma looked a little relieved when I said that. Of course, I'm happiest when you eat what I make. Take care of yourself and do your best. Thanks to Grandma's kindness, I felt a bit better. But the job hunting continued with interview after interview, and I kept running into Charlie. Every time, Charlie had something mocking to say. On the day of my interview with my first choice company, I ran into Charlie again. Still haven't received any job offers? How pitiful. Charlie scoffed. He's also job hunting, so I think it's the same thing. But it's troublesome if I say something unnecessary and get attacked. So I try to leave the place silently. Then, as if it wasn't funny, he continued speaking. Are you still living with your poor grandma? She must be a burden, just eating away at your money. Unable to hold back, I shouted, Shut up! She's the one who raised me! How can you even think that way? Surprised by the sudden outburst, Charlie seemed taken aback, but he continued. That's just a figure of speech, isn't it? Admit that you really think it's a pain in the ass. Anger boiled within me. Anyway, you'll probably fail today's interview, and I'll pass. Your suit looks poor, and you lack charm. No decent company would ever hire someone like you. Just find yourself a part-time job, mowing lawns or something, and scrape by. Living with your poor grandma suits you just fine, doesn't it? When Charlie blurted that out, suddenly from behind the interview venue, an elderly gentleman in a black suit appeared. Did you truly mean what you just said? The man with gray hair looked to be about 70. He seemed familiar somehow. Ah, you are... Yes, I remembered. I'd seen his face on the company's website. He was the CEO of this company. I heard everything you just said. You seem to be making quite a joke out of his grandmother. While glaring at Charlie, the CEO continued. Well, Charlie was flustered, but the CEO wasn't listening. I've often heard stories about how Tom has lived since he was a child. He seems to care deeply for his grandmother he lives with. Yet, you were rather harsh just now. At the CEO's words, Charlie was trembling. Even glancing at him, I could see he was breaking out in a cold sweat. I was curious and asked the CEO, "How do you know about me?" "Well, I know your grandmother, Susan. I enjoy talking to people and often attend senior gatherings. I got to know her there and we became close." I couldn't believe the CEO had a connection with my grandma. It was an unexpected turn of events that took me completely by surprise. I'm well aware of how you always supported Susan with her leg condition. She always talks about you, always bragging about her wonderful grandson. She has mentioned how you always smile, even during tough times, and how you worked multiple part-time jobs to support the household. I've also heard about how much you've studied. I had no idea. I didn't know she spoke so highly of me. Realizing how much my grandma praised me made me both happy and embarrassed, and I felt tears forming in my eyes. Perhaps feeling uncomfortable, Charlie, without uttering a word, tried to leave the room. Regarding the interview results, Charlie, you are not selected, but Tom, you're in. Charlie was taken aback at CEO's words. Is it because I said bad things about Tom? Charlie looked like he was about to cry. More than that, it's a matter of skills. Both of you come from universities of almost the same level. However, Tom can speak advanced English. He's even volunteered as a medical interpreter. Our company is currently looking for someone with medical interpreting skills. Tom is the perfect fit. I was touched that the CEO knew about my volunteer experience. On the other hand, Charlie, it seems you have an English qualification, but that's just from a test. Can you actually use it? We have plenty of English speakers here, but unless you can talk about medicine or chemicals, it's honestly tough. Simply put, you don't have what we're looking for. I'm sorry, but please try elsewhere. The CEO made it clear, and Charlie collapsed on the spot. Tom, I hope you can shine in our company. Yes, thank you. I was happy to feel that my hard work had paid off. I quickly went home to report the news to my grandmother. Oh my, congratulations! But to think you went for an interview at Mr. Wilson's company? I'm surprised but so happy. My grandmother seemed delighted, as if it were about her own achievements. It turned out she had known the CEO for quite a long time. I've been meeting Mr. Wilson at the seniors club since you came to live with us. We often play cards and have tea together. I knew he was a CEO, but I had no idea his company was so big. She was so surprised. She suggested calling the CEO to confirm. It's kind of weird that the president of my first choice company was an old friend to my grandmother. After making the call and confirming the facts, my grandmother handed me the phone. Tom, thank you so much for this time. No, thank you. It's quite surreal, isn't it? Just a while ago, we were meeting as a CEO and job applicant. Indeed, I'd like for us to get along not only as business acquaintances, but also as friends of Susan. How about we have a meal together sometime? The invitation was quite surprising. Would it really be okay to have a meal with the CEO? I was at a loss for words as to how to respond when he asked me to switch places with my grandmother, so I took over. When Grandma heard the CEO's proposal, she said, "That's great, let's have dinner." She immediately agreed, and the date was set in the blink of an eye. Seeing how happy my grandmother looked, I thought, well, why not? The following week, as promised, the three of us had a meal together. It is a common family restaurant, a common place where one would not expect the president of a large corporation to go. Are you sure this place is okay? Shouldn't we go somewhere more upscale? Perhaps you're being considerate of us. However, the president shook his head. I worked my way up from the bottom, so I prefer to keep things modest. High-end places make me uneasy. I often come to this diner. The staff here knows me well, he answered. True to his word, every time a staff member approached their table, they greeted the CEO. Seeing this, I began to relax. The three of us ordered the hamburger set the CEO recommended. We chatted happily while eating, and we are completely satisfied by the end. Having a meal together turned out to be more enjoyable than I had anticipated. After assisting my grandmother to the hallway so she could use the restroom, I returned to our table where the CEO began to speak to me. To be honest, I've been thinking about wanting to be with Susan. It might sound strange given my age, but I'm serious. My wife passed away 10 years ago, and I've been single ever since. To my embarrassment, I'm quite stubborn and I get into arguments with people. However, Susan always treats me kindly. If she knows I've had a disagreement with someone, she steps in, mediates, and ensures we make up. I don't think there's anyone else like her. So, if I have your blessing, someone I see as a son, I'd like to confess my feelings to her. What do you think? I smiled gently at the CEO's anxious expression and nodded. Of course, I support you. And, interrupting me, she said, "So that was it." Turning around, I saw my grandmother standing there. It seemed a staff member had escorted her back to our table. I hadn't noticed her return at all. I wondered how much she had overheard. "I'd be happy to be with you. Tom also agrees." "Thank you." She spoke with tears in her eyes. Subsequently, the two didn't officially register their marriage, but lived together as if they were. Their residence is unexpectedly modest for a CEO's home, but it makes me incredibly happy to see my grandmother so content. The three of us still frequently dine at that same diner. As for me, my job as an in-house interpreter is going well. I'm determined to work hard to see my grandmother's joyful face every day, and today is no exception as I dedicate myself to my work.